students. Hope you all are doing good. Welcome to the last session of the Sale of Goods Act. We will be discussing Unit 4, the second half of Unit 4 basically. So with that, we will be completing this Sale of Goods Act topic. And then I request you all to just be ready with your questions and answer. Yeah, any doubt you have, you can ask at the end of the session. As soon as I finish, I'll just unmute you all so that you can ask your questions. Okay, so let me begin with the topic. So first of all, let me just have a quick revision with you all, what we discussed in the last session, because this will be in addition to what we discussed in the last session. So Unit 4, wherein we studied about the unpaid seller's rights. So first of all, we discussed about the definition of the unpaid seller, section 45. So who is an unpaid seller? So there were conditions why and how a person becomes an unpaid seller. Okay. Then next is if a person is considered as unpaid seller, then what are the rights available to him? Then we studied that he has two kinds of rights. One is with respect to the goods, or we can say right against the goods, and the second one is rights against the buyer personally. So an unpaid seller can directly file a suit on the buyer. That is one part. And if he himself is holding the goods are still within his possession only, then he can still withhold those goods. He can apply lien on those goods, and then he can take the action to recover the price. So again, on against goods, we had two things. I think I can take up my PPT at this level so that
Yes, sir. हाँ सर. Hello, ma'am.
yeah, there was some network issue at my end, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sharing my PPT so that we can continue with that itself. We were discussing that if a person is classified as unpaid seller, then he has several rights. So there were two set of rights which are available to an unpaid seller. Just let me know if my screen is visible. I think it should be visible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll just take it to this slide. Yes. So we have discussed this part in the last session itself, that the unpaid seller has two set of rights. He has some rights against the buyer personally. He can file a suit for the price. He can file a suit for damages. He can, file a suit for the interest also. So this part we will be discussing today in detail. What we already discussed in the last session is with respect to this right against the goods. So against the goods, what all rights does the unpaid seller has, again, is divided into two parts. One is when the property has been passed. When the property has been passed to the buyer, that means the ownership is with the buyer, and The other set of rights is when the ownership has not passed. Similar kind of rights are there. The first one is right of lien. He can hold the goods until the money is paid to him. Second is if the goods are out of the possession of seller and they have yet not reached the buyer, that means they are still in transit. It is still with the carrier. Then in that case, the seller has the right to stop the goods in transit, and here he regains the possession. So he regains. That is the word which we have to remember here. He regains the possession. And here the word is he retains the possession, because he already has the possession and he will continue to holding the goods. That is why we say he retains the possession. And in stoppage, in the right of stoppage and transit, since he did not have the possession of the goods, he will first get the possession of the goods and then he will apply the right of lien. Okay. So again, in the differences, we studied that right of stoppage and transit begins when the right of lien ends. So, and that is how the cycle goes on. And right of stoppage, it ends and it gives rise to right of lien then. So that is how it continues. Next is right of resale. Right of resale means the seller has the right to resell the goods. Even if he is not the owner, but he can still resell the goods. That is a right available to the unpaid seller. We will discuss this also in detail today. Okay. So let me begin with a few questions, case study questions, so that we all will understand a few topics, and we will quickly learn that also. So the first thing is, this is the first question. Let's see who all can answer this. When can an unpaid seller of goods exercise his right of lien over the goods under the Sale of Goods Act? So this is a descriptive question you have. Can he exercise his right of lien even if the property in goods has passed to the buyer? When such a right is terminated, can he exercise his right even after he has obtained a decree for the price of goods from the court? Can you see there are four questions in this particular question? We have four sub questions. So the first one is simply asking you, when can an unpaid seller exercise his right of lien? So you have to explain what is right of lien and then it can be exercised. That is first part. So section 45 you have to explain here. Can he exercise his right of lien even if his property in goods has passed to the buyer? Of course, he can do so if he has the possession of the goods. But how to write it in examination, that is again a challenge maybe for some of you. So that is why you have to study it. And in the table itself, it was clearly shown to you that right of lien can be exercised even if the property has passed to the buyer. That means seller himself is not the owner. Still, if he has the possession, he can apply the right of lien. Then when such a right is terminated, so for termination of lien, you have to explain section number. Which section you have to explain? Let me get it from you all in the chat box. Anyone remembers what is the section number? Yes, it is a direct question, Sandeep, of course. So you have to, Dakshita has already mentioned, Deepak has mentioned, Sandeep has also mentioned, it's 49. Samarth, it's 49. When we are talking about termination of the lien, it is section 49. Yes, Akshay. Then last question is, can he exercise his right even after he has obtained the decree for the price of the goods from the court? So decree, again, if you do not remember, the meaning of the word decree is the court order. So because both the rights can be used simultaneously. Unpaid seller can directly file a suit on the buyer, and at the same time, he can even hold the goods. He can apply lien if he has the possession of the goods. So if the court has already given order in his favor regarding the price of the goods, regarding that he can recover the price of the goods from the buyer, can he still apply lien? Yes, he can still apply lien because both the rights can work simultaneously. Until and unless he receives the amount, he can apply the right of lien. So that is what we have to answer in this question. So let us see how it is answered. So a lien is a right to retain the possession of the goods until the payment of the price is paid. So everything which is there in section 45, you have to explain it here. You can even give an example to substantiate whatever you want to say. So the unpaid seller can exercise his right of lien even if the property in the goods has passed to the buyer. That is what you can explain the second part. Next is the termination of the lien. So when does it terminate? There are two situations. It is mentioned here. First is when he delivers the goods to the carrier or the other baby, or the next condition is when the buyer or his agent lawfully obtains the possession of the goods. We have discussed this in detail. So you can directly mention, though the section numbers are not written here, you can write it. If you remember, you can obviously write it. And the last part, yes, he can exercise his right of lien. Only one line is mentioned here, but you can again elaborate it saying that he has both the rights against the goods and against the buyer personally, and simultaneously he can use both the rights. So that is how you can explain it here. Let's move on to the next question. This is a case study question for you all. Let's see who can answer this. Mr. D sold some goods to Mr. E for 5 lakh rupees on 15 days credit. So it's a case of credit sales. You can very well make it out here. Again, who is seller, who is buyer? Just remember it while reading the question itself. Mr. D delivered the goods. So the goods have already been delivered. On the due date, Mr. E refused to pay for it. State the position and the rights of Mr. D as per the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Let's see if he can apply the right of lien. Firstly, of course, whether he's an unpaid seller or not, you have to classify whether the seller here is unpaid seller. So first you explain that, yes, he is an unpaid seller. Akshita has mentioned the reason also. After the credit term has expired, if the payment is not made, then in that case, the person becomes unpaid seller. Correct. So Sandeep has mentioned that unpaid seller is section 42, Sandeep, 45 section. You have mentioned it incorrectly here. Section 45, remember everyone. Okay. So you have to mention the definition of unpaid seller and why he has become unpaid seller. And then again, the question which is raised here is, what are the rights available to an unpaid seller? Can he apply right of lien? Can he apply right of stoppage and transit? Or he can have some other rights? So you have to mention that. So let me know whether he can apply right of lien or stoppage in transit. Ananya is saying he can have suit for price. Some other rights are available because yes, the ownership is not there. Vishnu, Yukti, all of you have mentioned it correctly because the possession of the goods is not with the seller. The goods have already been delivered to the buyer. Okay, so that is why let us have a quick look. So position of Mr. D, first of all, we have to say that he has become an unpaid seller. We have to mention clearly that it is a case of section 45(1), wherein we are explaining this is a case where this person has become unpaid seller because the whole of the price has not been paid even after the expiry of the credit period. So what are the rights? He can file a suit for price. He can file a suit for damages. So these are the rights available to him against the buyer. So against the buyer, he can apply his right. Why not against the goods? Because he does not have the goods in his possession. So if the goods are not in his possession, he cannot apply right of lien, stoppage of goods in transit, or resell. So all these rights are not there with him. Now what only the rights which are available to Mr. D are with respect to the or we can say rights against the buyer personally. So what are those rights? Filing a suit. He can either file a suit for the price, he can either file a suit for the damages, or he can file a suit for the interest portion. Is that clear? Is this question clear till here? Second and third, oh, I'll explain all these points in detail, don't worry. It is just the names which we have to remember for the timing. I have to explain all these points in detail. Suit for price, suit for damages. Don't worry about it. Yep, that is the topic for the day. We will be taking that up. Okay, don't worry about it. Okay, so let's take one more question. Ram sells 200 bales of cloth to Sham and sends 100 bales by lorry and 100 bales by railway. So from this first line itself, you should be able to understand that Ram is a seller, Sham is buyer. What are goods? Goods are bales of cloth. And how much is the quantity? It's 200 bales of cloth. Has he delivered everything in totality in one go? No. He has Ram has chosen two ways or two modes of transport. One, half of the goods he is choosing to send by lorry, and half of them he has chosen to send by railways. So Sham receives the delivery. Who is Sham? Sham is buyer. He receives the delivery of 100 bales which are sent by lorry. So the goods which are sent by lorry are already delivered to this buyer, but before he receives the delivery of bales sent by railway, he becomes bankrupt. So again, the goods are in transit because they have not yet reached the buyer. They are still in the hands of the carrier only. And meanwhile, the news has come that this buyer has become bankrupt. Okay, so what action can be taken by Ram? First of all, again, you have to mention it clearly that he has become unpaid seller. Why he has become unpaid seller and all, you can mention that. Since the seller buyer has become insolvent, therefore he will not be able to pay the full price of the goods. So can Ram exercise right of stopping the goods in transit? Again, there is one more concept you have to remember. It is regarding the part delivery of the goods. So section 48, clearly you have to mention whether lien can be applied when half of the goods are already sold. So again, 48 will be applicable or not because the goods are still in transit. Okay. So when goods are still in transit, how everything goes. So let me hear it from you first of all, and then we will see what is the answer. So Samarth is saying, but okay, let me see what Vishnu is saying. He can stop the transit for 100 bales. Okay. Then Sandeep is saying, yes, he can exercise the right of stoppage. Okay. Dakshita is saying, right to stoppage in transit for 100 bales sent by railway is available to the seller. Correct. Samarth is saying, but if railway receipt is in the name of Ram, he can stop the goods from reaching Sham. Uh, See, there's nothing mentioned about that, who in whose name. Normally, it is in the name of the buyer. So, who will receive the goods? The railway receipt will be like that. Okay, so most of you are clear on the point that yes, stoppage of goods in transit will be applicable in this particular case. So let us quickly see what is the actual answer for this. So right of stoppage of goods in transit, section number 50 is applicable. So we have to mention all the conditions when this section is applicable, or what are the conditions in which this section is applicable. Last paragraph I'm reading for you. Applying the provisions to the given case, Ram being still unpaid, he can stop the 100 bales of cloth sent by railways as these goods are still in transit. He may recover the price of other 100 bales sent by lorry by using his rights against the buyer. Okay, so that way it has mentioned this part. Why section 48 is not directly mentioned here? Because the goods were not in his possession. So basically, we are trying to say that stoppage of goods in transit will be applicable, then he will regain the possession, and maybe after that he can apply that, or directly he can file a suit for the price on the buyer. So that way he can do. Okay. Next question. Okay, one more question and then we will start with the session. Suraj sold his car to Sohan for rupees 75,000. So Suraj is seller, car is the goods, and then Sohan is the buyer. And how much is the price? 75,000 is the price. Okay. After inspection and satisfaction, Sohan paid rupees 25,000, that is part amount has been paid, and took the possession of the car and promised to pay the remaining amount within a month. So portion of the price is paid, and for the remaining 1 month credit is asked by the buyer. Okay, and that is agreed between buyer and seller. Later on, Sohan is the buyer here. Sohan refuses to give the remaining amount on the ground that the car was not in a good condition. Can he later on say that? Can he refuse making the payment by saying this? Advise Suraj as to what remedy is available to him against Sohan. So whenever you see these kind of questions, and Just read the last line again. We have to advise Suraj. Who is Suraj? Suraj is seller. So are there any remedies available to a seller? So again, you have to think it from that point, whether Suraj has become unpaid seller, then only he will have some rights. If Suraj has already been paid in full, then in that case, he will not have any remedy. Okay. So let me hear it from you first, and then we will quickly discuss. So Dakshita is saying he has right against the buyer. Sandeep is saying yes, Suraj has a right against the buyer. See, the goods have already moved into the possession of buyer. Okay. And what about the ownership? Has the ownership transferred? Has the ownership transferred? Who has the ownership of these goods? Suraj is unpaid seller. That is okay because the payment is not made. And of course, the ownership has been transferred. It is a case of credit sale, obviously. So yes, Mr. Mdas is saying that yes, the ownership has been passed. So let us quickly read uh, what is there in the answer. As per section 55 of the Sale of Goods Act, we have not yet discussed this. We will be discussing this today, but let us have it in the form of answer first and then we will discuss. So, as per section 55 of the Sale of Goods Act, an unpaid seller has the right to institute. That means he has a right to file a suit for the price against the buyer personally. And these are the conditions in which he can file a suit. So, these conditions we will discuss in detail in the later part of my slides, not here. So directly I'm pointing out what is the answer. This problem is based, so this last paragraph I'm reading it out. This problem is based on the above provision. Hence, Suraj will succeed against Sohan for the recovery of the remaining amount. Apart from this, Suraj is also entitled to claim interest on the remaining amount, interest during the pendency of the suit, and the cost of the proceeding. So what all he can recover besides the price of the goods. So 50,000 obviously he can claim by filing a suit, and besides 50,000 what all he can claim. So he can file a suit for the interest because if he had paid it much earlier, obviously the opportunity of getting the interest benefit would have been there with the seller. But since this is a kind of opportunity loss for him, the interest amount can be claimed from the buyer. So that is what. And then cost of the proceeding means cost of filing the suit, the lawyer fees, the court fees, that also you can claim from the buyer. So accordingly, you can mention all these points. So everyone, I'll skip this question and I'll directly start with the topic. And during the last part of my session, I'll take up whatever case studies are there with me in this presentation. Okay. Mr. Endas is asking, is not section 46 applicable right against the buyer? So obviously right against the buyer is applicable, but don't think about these sections. 46 is not right against the buyer. It is basically regarding the lien, of course, 46 itself has the whole thing. It talks about the all the rights of the buyer. But when we are pointing out specific rights, then again you can mention exact section which is there. So 46 tells you the detailed rights which are available to the unpaid seller. Then in for every specific right you have a different section. So when you are writing the answer, general answer, it will be that yes, the rights are available to him. But 46 talks about right against the goods and right against the buyer personally, both the rights it is talking. When we are speaking specifically, then you have to take the particular section. So now we are starting with this topic, effect of subsale or pledge by the buyer. Okay, what happens when the buyer subsequently sells the goods which he has obtained, or he subsequently makes a pledge of the goods which he has obtained. Okay, and we are studying it in this chapter. This simply means that buyer has not paid the amount from his side. The seller is still the unpaid seller, and the buyer is further selling it to some other person. So let me just take an example so that it becomes easy for us to understand. Let us assume that A A is a seller He has delivered goods to B. Who is B? B, we will say that he is a buyer. And in fact, we will write here A is unpaid seller. Okay, so that it becomes easier for us to understand. And what is happening here? B is further selling the goods to C. Maybe he's selling it or he is giving it on pledge. So this is the new person or the new buyer for the time being. Let us assume that. So if we are saying that A is unpaid seller, A himself has not received the money. The question is whether B, that is the buyer, can he pass on the better title to C? Whether C will become the owner, or if I ask you the other way, can A, who is unpaid seller, can he recover the goods? Can he recover the goods from whom? Can he recover the goods from this new buyer? Now, who is having the goods? This new buyer is having the goods. Can this unpaid seller recover the goods from this new buyer? Okay, that is the question which we are discussing in this particular section. So let me read the section for you. The right of lien or stoppage in transit is not affected. What is it saying? The right of lien. Who has this right of lien or stoppage in transit? Unpaid seller has these rights, right? And this right is not affected by the buyer selling or pledging the goods. So even if the buyer has further sold these goods to anyone else or he has given it on pledge, the unpaid seller still has these rights. So he can recover the money from the new buyer. So again we know that when can you apply right of lien? When the goods are in the possession of A. So even if the buyer has make an agreement with the new person with C, but the goods are still lying with unpaid seller. The goods are still in the possession of unpaid seller, so he can still hold the goods. Can this new buyer say that I want the delivery of the goods? Can he ask this unpaid seller to deliver the goods to him? He will, so this A, that is the unpaid seller, he will say that I still have this right of lien. I can still hold the goods even if the buyer has sold it to you. So he still has the right to apply lien, or if the goods are in transit, he can still apply stoppage in transit. This right is contained in which section? Section 53. But we have read it in half only. The condition is again there. There's a condition which we have to study unless. See, here it is mentioned unless. So section 53, we have to read it in full. So the first part says that even if the buyer has sold the goods or he has given it on pledge to some other person, still the unpaid seller has his right of lien. He has his right of stoppage in transit unless means there is a condition. What is the condition? That the seller has assented to it. What does this mean? This means that if the buyer is further selling the goods to C, he has already obtained the permission or he has conveyed it to this unpaid seller, and this unpaid seller is okay. He has given his consent that okay, go ahead and sell this goods to C or any other person whom you want. So he himself has given the assent. He himself has given the consent. So if he gives his consent, he cannot further deny. So if he has given his consent to sell it further, in that case, he has indirectly, what he has done, he has indirectly waived his right. He has indirectly waived his right. Which kind of waiver is this? He has indirectly waived his right to apply lien or apply this stoppage of goods in transit. So that is what you have to remember. If he himself is consenting or he himself is assenting to the fact that okay, go ahead and give it to some other person, indirectly he has waived his right of lien or stoppage of goods in transit. At that point he cannot apply this right. Otherwise in all the situations, wherever he has not consented, wherever he has not assented to the sale, or it may be a situation that the buyer has not communicated anything to the unpaid seller, he is doing it on his own. He has kept all that secret from the unpaid seller. And if he has done that way, then the unpaid seller still has the right of lien or stoppage of goods in transit. So what is the principle discussed here? The second buyer or the new buyer, that is C in our case, he cannot stand in a better position than his seller. That means the first buyer. So whatever the position is there of this B, the same position will be there of this C. That is the main thing which we have to understand. What was the position of this buyer? That until unless he makes the payment, the goods will not be delivered to him. Similarly, if C is not making the payment, then obviously the goods will not be delivered to him. So that is how the thing is going. So if C has made the payment to B, then A can say that first let me have the payment in full and then only I will deliver it to you. So just saying that he will still have his right of lien. So let us read this example quickly, and then if you have any doubts, we will take that up. A sold goods to B of Mumbai. Goods are handed to railways for transmission. Meanwhile, so goods are in transit. Meanwhile, B sold these goods to C for consideration. B becomes insolvent. B becomes insolvent. That simply means B will not be able to make the payment to A. Therefore, we can say that A has become unpaid seller. So can A still exercise his right of stoppage in transit? Yes. Now, because we are assuming that he has not given any assent from his side for the further transfer of the goods. So here A is not aware of this fact that these goods are further sold to anyone else. So he still has his right of stoppage in transit. Is this point clear till here? Till this example, are we clear? Then we have some exceptions also. Yes. Okay, so since you all are saying okay, so we can go ahead here. So there are some exceptions to this particular topic. What is the main topic? That the unpaid seller still holds his right of lien or stoppage in transit, even if the buyer is selling the goods to someone else or he's giving the goods to someone else on pledge. The topic now we are studying is the exceptions. Exception simply means that the seller will not have these rights. The seller rights are defeated simply means he will not have the right of lien or stoppage of goods in transit. When does that happen? So when does that happen? The first case is when the seller has given his assent, when he himself has given his consent for the further disposition of the goods. So this is the case which is already discussed also. Let us read this example. A agreed with B that the price will be paid out of the sale proceeds recovered from B's customers. So A is seller. A here is seller. I'm reading this example 7 here at the bottom of this slide. So A is seller. A is seller. He has sold the goods to B. B has told him that I will pay you the money which I will recover from my customers. So A is agreeing to it. It's okay. You can further sell the goods, whatever you recover, with that amount you can pay me. So A has himself assented to further sales. Okay. So since he has further assented to the sales, then therefore it is implied here that his right of lien or stoppage in transit is terminated. Okay, so let me read it out full for you. B sold these goods to C. So accordingly, B has further sold it to C. C has paid B, but B has now failed to pay A. When B has failed to pay A, simply means A has now become unpaid seller because he could not recover or he could not get the amount from B. So what can A do? Is there any remedy available to A? Can he apply lien on the goods if it is there with him? He cannot apply lien on goods because he had himself assented to the further sale or mortgage or any other disposition. So his right of lien is defeated. But can he still recover the money? Yes, he can still recover the money by filing a suit against the buyer. So against the goods, his rights are terminated, but against the buyer, his rights are still there. So he can recover the money by filing a suit against the buyer. Is this example clear? Example number 7. Are we clear till this point? Okay, great. Yes, Sandeep. So that point I have cleared here, that he can file a suit for the price. Yes. Next, what is the second condition when his right will be defeated, or simply saying that unpaid seller will not have this right of lien or stoppage in transit? So whenever there is a transfer of document of title. So when a document of title, the what is the meaning of document of title? Anyone who remembers the section number of document of title? Anyone who remembers the section for document of title and some examples? And some examples. Let us see who remembers that. Akshat, you have to write completely. It's not just bill. 2-4 is correct, Vishnu. 2-4 is document of title. Correct. Bill of lading. Bill of lading is one example. Then railway receipt. Yes, correct. Correct. You people are correct. So what does that indicate? When you are handing over this document of title to someone else, the other person has the right to receive the goods. Okay. So indirectly, they have a right to get the possession of the goods. They have the right to get the custody of the goods. So let us read it full here. When a document of title to goods has been transferred to the buyer. Now, when the buyer, we are saying that new buyer, okay, or let us assume in this example itself that a here, the unpaid seller, has given a document of title to B. He still has the goods with him, but he has given document of title to B. Okay, or the goods may be in transit and he has handed over this document of title to B. Now B has further handed over the document of title to C. So that is the case we are discussing. So when a document of title to goods has been transferred to the buyer, and the buyer transfers the document to a person who has brought the goods in good faith and for value. So this new buyer, we are talking about the new buyer C in our case. So in our case, let us take the example of C. So if C is acting in good faith and for value, means he has already paid the consideration. He has also paid the money for it, and he has the document of title, then in that case, he will receive the goods. The unpaid seller's right of lien or stoppage of goods in transit is terminated in this particular case. So let us read the complete thing here. First point which is mentioned here, this if by way of sale. So if document of title has been transferred to the buyer and it is a case of sale, then the unpaid seller's right of lien or stoppage are defeated. If it is by way of a pledge, if it is a case of a pledge, then those rights can only be exercised subject to the rights of the pledgee. So what are the rights available to the pledgee? Accordingly, the rights will be executed. Or in simple words, you should understand that if the document of title has passed to the other person, and with this document of title, he has passed on the goods to the ownership to the other person, then the new buyer, if he is acting on good faith and for value means he has paid the consideration, then in that case, he will receive the goods. The buyer, the original seller, will lose his right of lien or stoppage in transit. Okay. Yeah, correct. Yeah, Vicky has mentioned that non-owner case. Yes, correct, correct, correct. So let me move to the next topic now. So in this topic, we just studied two important things. The first important thing is, even if the goods are further sold or pledged by the buyer, the unpaid seller will still have his right intact. His right of lien and stoppage in transit are still with him until and unless he himself has assented to it or the transfer has happened by document of title. So only in these two situations, the unpaid seller will lose right against the goods. Still, he can recover the money from the buyer by filing a suit against the buyer. Okay. So that way he can recover. Next topic, right of resale. That means the third right against the goods which we were talking about. It is under section 54. So just remember this section 54. It talks about right of resale. Okay. So who has a right to resell the goods? Why the word resell is there? And in the earlier slide, we read subsale. So let me just quickly write it for you. When we say that seller is selling the goods, it is a case of resale. When the seller, who is not the owner, seller is not owner. Now we should also write that, because the ownership has been passed to the buyer. So the seller is holding the goods in the position of an unpaid seller. He has the right to further sell it, and that is simply known as resale. When the buyer is selling the goods, when the buyer is further selling it to the other person, it is known as subsale. So are these two words clear? Then we say it a case of resell, and then we say it a case of subsale. Seller, because he's selling it again. He has already sold it to the buyer, and again he's selling it to someone else because he has not recovered the money or he has not received the money. So when seller is making a second sale, it is known as resell. When the buyer is making further sale, it is known as subsale. Okay, so let us quickly read what is there in this section. Without the right to resell, the right of lien and stoppage in transit would be of little practical use. So this is the basic understanding which you should have. Suppose the seller has applied the right of lien. Okay, so he can withhold the goods with himself. He can retain the possession of the goods. So can he retain the possession of the goods uh, for an unlimited period of time? How will he get the money from the buyer? So either he will ask the buyer that I'll give you the goods only on the condition when you make the payment to me. But suppose buyer is not making any kind of payment, then what is the remedy available to the seller? What is the remedy available to the unpaid seller? So what he can do is he can now resell the goods. So firstly, he should prove to the court, the unpaid seller has, first of all, he has to prove that he had applied the lien, he had applied the stoppage in transit, and then only he had applied his third right, that is right to resell. So until and unless he applies this right, he won't be able to recover the money uh, for those particular goods. Either the buyer is, the buyer is ready to pay the amount as soon as he realized that, oh, the seller has, applied lien. Either he is of that mindset. Otherwise, if the buyer is not impacted by that, he is not affected in any way, he's still not ready to pay, then in that case, what seller can do, he can resell the goods. Okay, he can resell the goods. So that is why here it is clearly mentioned that only this is the case where he can convert goods back into the money. So by reselling the goods, he will convert the goods back into the money. Simply means the money which he could not recover from the original buyer, he will recover it from the next buyer. Okay. So what are the conditions when this right is available? So the first condition is when the goods are perishable goods, because he cannot keep on holding the goods forever. The value of the goods will deteriorate, or the value of the goods will soon become zero at one point of time. So till the goods are in good position, he should be able to resell and collect the value for that. So where the goods are of perishable nature, the buyer should not also be informed. So even if without informing the buyer, the seller is making the resale, then in that case, he will be allowed to do so. And later on, buyer cannot say that I was not being informed, because the goods are perishable in nature. So these kind of questions can be asked in exams also sometimes, that the goods were perishable in nature, the unpaid seller had the possession of the goods. Even without informing buyer, the unpaid seller sold these goods. So whether this kind of situation is allowed, whether buyer will have any remedy. So the answer is, in this particular situation, since it was a case of a perishable goods, then the unpaid seller can obviously resell the goods even without informing the buyer. That is allowed. But in all other situations, you have to first inform the buyer, allow him the opportunity to make the payment. But if he is not making the payment, then unpaid seller can resell the goods. Okay. So second condition is allowing the buyer a reasonable time to pay. So just inform him, just give him a notice that unless and until you make me the payment, I'm allowing you, suppose say 7 days or 10 days. If you do not make the payment within that time frame, then I will resell the goods. So that is a kind of notice which can be served on the a buyer, okay, to make the payment. But if he is not making the payment within that time period, that is the time when the unpaid seller has the right to resell the goods. Next, third part here is after lien or stoppage is exercised. When the unpaid seller has already applied his right of lien, he has waited for some time for the buyer to make the payment, or he has applied the stoppage right and he is still waiting for the buyer to make the payment, but the buyer has not taken any action. So in that case, he has all the rights to sell the goods. Navya, whatever you want to ask, just write it in the chat box. Okay, so the subsequent buyer acquires a good title against the original buyer. It it is not it is clearly mentioned here that even if no notice was given, because when the unpaid seller had applied lien or stoppage, obviously the notice was given to or the information was given to the unpaid the buyer. So he already knew that this kind of situation may arise in future if he does not make payment. So again and again, informing him is not required. So that is what is mentioned here. Even if the notice was not given to him, the new buyer will acquire the rights, full rights against the original buyer. Next point which is mentioned here is then the seller expressly reserves his right in the contract. We have read that in section 25 that sometimes seller expressly reserves his right to sell the goods. So in that case, if he has already mentioned that, he will have the right to resell. Last point, the fifth condition, when the unpaid seller can resell the goods. So this can be asked as a descriptive question. What are the circumstances in which the unpaid seller can resell the goods? So these are the 5 situations which you have to explain, saying that these are the conditions or these are the circumstances when the unpaid seller can sell the goods. So this is the last one. When the property has not passed. So when the property has not passed, who is the owner? Seller himself is the owner. And rather than waiting for the buyer to make the payment, because the agreement to sell has already happened, and that is why we are assuming that. So rather than waiting for the buyer to make the payment, it is up to the seller to make the to further sell these goods or to resell the goods rather than waiting for the buyer to come. Okay, so that is what is meant here. Right of withholding the delivery, the unpaid seller can still withhold the delivery even if it is a case of agreement to sell in the situation when the buyer has not made any payment. Okay. There is one point which is mentioned at the end of the slide, which is very important. Suppose on resale, after notice, seller has recovered excess price of these goods. The original price of the goods was 100, but on resale, the amount which he has received is 120. Or there may be a case wherein he is receiving just rupees 60. What will happen to the excess or the deficit? So how to make a adjustment for that? So for that, it is mentioned here. So if there are some damages means the resale has happened at a lower price. Surplus means when the resale has happened at a higher price. So on resale, if it is done after notice, that means if you have already informed the buyer and now the resale has happened, in that case, seller can recover the difference between the contract price and the resale price as damages and retain any profit if the resale price is higher. So if you have already informed the buyer, we are talking from the point of view of the unpaid seller. So if the unpaid seller has already informed the buyer that I will be, reselling your goods, and the buyer has not taken any action and he has resold those goods, and suppose he has recovered excess amount. So original price is 100 and now the unpaid seller is recovering 120, then the excess portion he can retain with himself. He does not have to give the excess amount to the buyer. He can very well keep it with himself. What happens when he receives the less amount? So for the less amount, here it is mentioned that if if there is any profit, he can retain that. If the resale has happened without any notice, seller cannot recover the loss, but he must return any surplus. So there are two situations. I'll just write it for you so that you remember it very clearly. So if there is excess, okay, we should write whether the buyer has been informed or not. So buyer was informed. So buyer had notice, I will write buyer had notice. And the other situation is buyer did not have notice. Buyer did not have notice. Now there may be again two situations. One is when there is excess amount received. One is when excess amount is received. And the other, or we can say simply, there is a profit on sale. There is a profit on sale. The other situation could be there is a loss on sale, resale. In fact, there is a loss on resale. Okay. So if the buyer had notice, who can retain this profit? So this profit belongs to the seller. That is what is explained here. And if the buyer did not have any notice about these things, I'm reading the last line again. If the goods are resold without notice, the seller cannot recover the loss. So who will bear the loss? If the notice is not given, who will bear the loss? Seller will bear the loss. It is mentioned like this. So if there is any loss, seller will bear the loss. Suppose the goods are sold at 60 only, 40 still unpaid. Can the seller recover the amount from buyer now? He cannot recover because he had not informed the buyer. What about the excess money if he has received? Whatever profit he has received, he has to return it to the buyer. So this is what is given here. So if any excess of amount you have received, that means if there is any profit and the buyer did not get any information about the resale, then in that case, the profit amount belongs to the buyer. Okay. And in the first case, when the buyer had the notice about the resale, then the profit, who can retain the profit? Seller can retain the profit. Okay. And the loss, obviously, this can be claimed by the seller through other means. So he can file a suit and he can get it from the buyer through some other means by filing a suit and all. Is this point clear till here? Can we move further? Vicky, we'll take full session, no? It's 2 hour session. Yeah, so let me just quickly switch to the next topic, rights of unpaid seller against the buyer. So what are the rights against the buyer? So personally, suits can be filed against the buyer. So what are these rights? There are four kinds of suit which can be filed against the buyer personally. So first is suit for price. Second is suit for damages for non-acceptance. There are section numbers also mentioned for you. So suit for price is in section 55. I'm not reading all the sections because you should remember just section 55. That shall be of importance. Rest, I mean, if you want, you can remember those sections. Third is repudiation of the contract before the due date, and the last one is suit for the interest. So let us quickly read this topic and understand this. What are the provisions are there with respect to the rights of unpaid seller against the buyer? So these are the seller's remedies for breach of contract. They are rights against the buyer personally in addition to. So this point is very well highlighted here that these are the rights in addition to. In addition to his right against the goods. Goods वाले rights तो आप लगा ही सकते हो, case भी file कर सकते हो simultaneously. So first of all is right against the first one is suit for the price. So let's assume that the goods price was the price of the goods was 10,000. Assume that, and the full price has not been paid. So we can file the suit for full 10,000 rupees here. So what is mentioned here? If it is a case of contract of sale, so if it is a case of sale and it is a case of agreement to sell, both are dealt separately. So subsection 1 talks about contract of sale or simply meaning sale. Subsection 2 deals with agreement to sell. So what does it say? It says that when property in goods has passed to the buyer and the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay, the seller may sue him for price. So this is applicable. This is applicable when the buyer is wrongfully neglecting. You are asking again and again the buyer to pay, but the buyer is neglecting, he's ignoring, or he's refusing to pay. Then in that case, seller may file a suit against him for the price of the goods. Second situation, subsection 2, section 55, subsection 2, what does it say? In case of agreement to sell, where the price is payable on a certain day, irrespective of the delivery, whether the delivery has been made or not, but the buyer is supposed to make the payment on a particular day, the seller may sue for the price, although the property has not passed and the goods have not been appropriated, because that was the condition. So this is what is mentioned here. Next, suit for damages for non-acceptance. If you remember the topic, uh, goods have to be delivered by seller, and the goods are, with whatever goods are delivered, they have to be accepted by the buyer. And there were various circumstances where we read that this is considered as deemed acceptance. So that was a topic which was there in unit 3. Based on that, again, we have to study here, what if the buyer does not accept the goods? Because there are transportation charges, there is an opportunity loss for the seller. What are the remedies available to the unpaid seller in that case? So where the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to accept and pay for the goods, the seller may sue him for the damages of non-acceptance. So everything is correct. The goods are as per description, everything is there, but still he is not accepting. Then in that case, damages can be claimed from the buyer. See, the goods will ultimately go back to the seller because the buyer has not accepted the goods. So if the buyer has not accepted the goods will go back to the seller. So for the price of the goods, he cannot file a claim, or he cannot file a suit because the goods are there with him. But the damages means the transportation charges or any other charges which have been incurred by this seller. Then in that case, he can recover from the buyer. Okay, how to measure these damages, because obviously the seller will ask for a higher amount. The buyer may say that this should not be the case. I mean, the damages charge should be lesser. So how to calculate the damages? For that, section 73 of Indian Contract Act is applicable. How to measure these damages? The measurement will be done. The how to measure this damages is explained in section 73 of the Indian Contract Act. So again, here we should remember that while studying Sale of Goods Act, sometimes we have to refer to Indian Contract Act also, because that is the parent act. So how to recover, what shall be the damages which can be claimed, that is given there. So we have to refer to that. Next is repudiation before due date. What do you mean by repudiation? Repudiation means cancellation of the contract. So if buyer has cancelled the contract before the due date, then in that case, again, it is a kind of opportunity loss for the seller, so he can ask for some damages. So where the buyer repudiates the contract before the date of the delivery, the seller may either treat the contract as subsisting and he can wait till the delivery date, or he may rescind the contract for the damages. So this is a case of anticipatory breach. If you remember, you had studied this topic in the Indian Contract Act, anticipatory breach. You are anticipating, you are expecting that the buyer will not fulfill his promise. So considering that as an anticipatory breach, the remedy which is allowed to the seller here is that he can treat the contract as cancelled and he can ask for the damages. So that is one thing which can be done here. Okay. Last part is suit for the interest. Suit for the interest, section 61. What kind of interest? Because the buyer has not paid the money. So if the buyer had paid him a month ago or maybe earlier, in that case, the seller would have parked this money in the bank, or maybe somewhere else he might have invested, and he would have got the interest over it. So the loss of interest, that is a kind of opportunity loss for him. He can claim it from the buyer. So where there is a specific agreement for interest, the seller may recover the interest from the buyer. There he has already mentioned that if you make a delay in the payment, I will charge interest at the rate of say 6% or 10% from you. Where there is a specific condition, he will do that way. But if there is absence of such agreement, if that kind of agreement, that thing was not discussed earlier, then in that case, still the court will do that. How you can get that from the court? The seller may charge interest from the day he notifies the buyer. As soon he informs the buyer, from that day, he can get the interest from the buyer. But obviously, buyer will not pay him directly, so the court case will be filed for that. So the court may award the interest. Award the interest means they may order the interest. Buyer will have to pay the interest amount. And what will be the rate applicable? The rate will be decided by the court. Okay. And what shall be the date? Because while calculating the interest, you know that three things are required: principal, rate, and a time duration for which the interest shall be paid. So the price is the principal amount on which the interest shall be calculated. Rate shall be decided by the court, and the time period is the due date of the payment. From the due date till the date the payment has not been made. So for that particular time period, the interest shall be calculated. Okay. So any doubts in this particular slide, or we can move to the next topic? Yeah, Vishnu has mentioned ordinary damages can be asked. Correct. You can say the ordinary damages can be asked. So we can simply claim the damages. We can cancel the contract and everything. Okay. Being the unpaid seller. Then this is the, I think, last topic. Let me just, sale by auction will be the last topic. Okay. We can have a break after this particular slide. What are the remedies of buyer against the seller? So till now, what we have read is, we have read about the unpaid seller's rights. So we have read it from the point of view of seller. What are the rights available to a seller? Now what we are reading the remedies which are available to buyer. What does that mean? When will buyer have the right? So buyer will have the right when seller has made a breach. So breach has been done by seller has made a breach, or seller has breached. So what kind of breach could be done by the seller? So there is no delivery, or there may be a case of no delivery of the goods, or maybe the quality of the goods is not good, the quantity is not correct, maybe whatever time you have discussed. So all those things related to delivery of the goods. So that is defective, or that is breached. Okay. So with that preconceived fact in your mind, we are studying this topic. So what does it say? Breach of contract by seller arises when he fails to deliver in time or the manner prescribed. So as the whatever condition was prescribed, or the manner with which it was prescribed, that the goods have to be delivered through courier, or maybe they had to be delivered by in such and such packing, or whatever conditions you had specified. If they have not been delivered in that specific conditions, or maybe the goods have not been delivered in time, then in that case what can happen? I'm just underline these points for you, just a second. If the goods have not been delivered in time or in a particular manner, then this is a case where buyer will have the right against the seller. What is the second condition? Delivered non-conforming. When the goods have been delivered non-conforming to the conditions which the buyer, where the buyer has rejected the goods. So goods have been delivered, but they are not conforming to the sample which it was shown, or it is not matching as per the description or whatever. In that case, the buyer has rejected those goods, and therefore he has some remedy against the seller. One more condition is there, where there is a repudiation of the contract. Repudiation thing we have already read in the previous slide also. There we read that maybe the buyer is cancelling the contract, but here we are saying that seller is cancelling the contracts. It may happen that we had given an order to the seller to make certain goods, but due to strike in his factory or something like that, the seller is saying that he will not be able to finally perform his part of promise. So he is canceling the contract. So in that situation, this will happen that the seller is repudiating the contract, and will it give any right to the buyer? That is what we are discussing. So in all these situations, buyer will have a right against the seller. So let us see what all rights are there. So there are 5 kinds of rights depending on different situations, depending on different circumstances. You can apply any of these rights. So the first is damages for non-delivery. If the goods are not delivered, then in that case, you can apply this remedy. Being a buyer, you can apply this remedy. So let me just read it for you. Where the seller wrongfully neglects or refuses to deliver, the buyer may sue him for damages for non-delivery. If the goods are not delivered at all, maybe for any reason, then in that case, the buyer may sue the seller in this particular section, section 57. Next is specific performance. What do you mean by specific performance? The buyer may force seller to perform as they had agreed. So let us assume that there is a hotel. Hotel is a buyer, let us assume, and the seller is a manufacturer of a particular crockery. So a crockery set, a variety of crockery set were ordered, or variety of furniture was ordered by this hotel from a particular manufacturer. Let us assume M manufacturers, M Furniture Limited. So those furnitures are not sold by this buyer, this seller. Let me just write it for you. So we are assuming that hotel is the buyer. And what is the nature of the contract here? We are assuming that a special kind of special crockery set was ordered. Special crockery set was ordered for this hotel. And who is the seller here? Seller, let us assume M Limited is the seller. M Limited is the seller. So hotel is a buyer in our case, and a special kind of crockery set was ordered from this M Limited, which is not available with anyone else. Okay, this kind of crockery set is not available with anyone else. Only this M Limited is manufacturing this special crockery set. So after waiting a long time, still the hotel is not receiving the goods. The seller is saying that we are unable to deliver this goods within this time, and in fact we are not delivering to you at all. We are canceling the contract. Can the hotel or the buyer in our case file a suit against the seller saying that you have to supply us that particular crockery because we had made or we had entered into that contract? So if they can force them to perform as it was agreed in the contract, that means they will have to sell the crockery by any way, or by using any method. Even if they are not ready to do so, they will be bound to do so by court. So if that is the case, this is known as specific performance. जो बोला था वो ही करना पड़ेगा. We are not ready to accept the damages. Seller is saying, this M Limited is saying that we are ready to pay you the damages. You can get this from anywhere else in the market. But the hotel is saying that no, we want the same to be done by you only. So specific performance can be asked in some particular cases only. So what are those situations? What are those cases? Because you cannot force anyone to perform when the other person is not in a mood to perform. Okay. तो जब आपको बोले पढ़ना है, जबरदस्ती तो नहीं पढ़ा सकते. तो specific performance means you are asked to perform the way it was discussed or it was decided. So you have to perform, you have to do what you had said. So this is allowed only when the goods are specific or ascertain. कुछ specific तरह के goods हैं या ascertain goods हैं. Second case is when it is subject to specific relief act. The same thing can be even referred to this act also, specific relief act. The third is damages are not adequate. The hotel is saying that even if you pay me damages, we will not find this kind of crockery anywhere else. So damages are not enough. We want the crockery set from you. because we have already made a lot of publicity that we will have or we will supply in such and such crockery and all. Last thing is goods are special or unique nature, which are not there with anyone else. So therefore, this M Limited has to supply this unique nature goods because these are not available anywhere else in the market. So the buyer, even if he gets any kind of damages, he won't be able to get these goods from the market. Therefore, he can ask M Limited to perform specifically whatever is decided between them. So the buyer here can apply to the court. The buyer here is saying that damages are not sufficient for me. I need the specific performance. So that is the case where this point can be applied. Okay. Next, breach of warranty. Breach of warranty means we have understood this in detail while studying Unit 2. There are conditions and warranties. Okay. Whenever there is a breach of warranty, you can claim damages from the other party. That means the seller. From the seller, you can claim the damages. So buyer may set a breach in diminution or extension of price or sue the seller for the damages in the breach of warranty. What does this mean? So, suppose that the goods are worth 1,000 rupees, and we are saying that there is a breach of warranty. Whatever warranty we can say, there is a breach of warranty. Okay, so we can claim damages. So damages can be claimed in two ways. Either you pay the full amount, being a buyer, you are paying this full 1,000 rupees, and then you are claiming that we want a damage of 100 rupees. Okay, then you are claiming damages of 100 rupees. Or in other words, what you can do is you directly pay 900 rupees only. Why to pay 1,000 rupees full? So just pay 900 rupees to the seller, claiming that we have already deducted the amount of damages. We have already deducted the damages. So that is what is mentioned by this diminution or extension of the price. You are lowering down the price by the amount of the damage caused. So either you pay this amount or you pay the full amount and claim damages. It is one and the same thing. But here you will have to wait longer. This is a lengthy process. Okay. And this is a quick process. So normally we should apply this one. So in case of breach of warranty, in short, you can claim damages. Damages can be claimed in either of the ways. Next, suit for anticipatory breach. So if there is a breach, expected breach from the side of the seller, you are thinking that the seller will not be able to perform because you have already got the information that there is a strike in his factory or there is a fire which has broke out in his factory. Then in that case, what you can do is you can simply assume that he will not be able to perform. You can consider the contract as repudiated, and then you can claim the damages if this has happened before the date of delivery. Okay, you have two rights. If you remember this anticipatory breach, the person has two rights. Either you continue it till the due date, or you can rescind the contract then and there as soon as you have got the information, and then you can claim the damages. So that is the condition which is given here in the anticipatory breach. Last is suit for the interest. This is with respect to any advance payment. If the buyer has made any advance payment, suppose he has made any advance payment and the goods have not been delivered to him in time, or maybe the quality is not good or whatever, he wants his advance money back, of course, and along with that he wants to claim the interest also because he has paid the person well before in time. So for that time period, for a month or two, he wants to have the interest on that amount. So that is given in this situation. Let us read this example 8. A agreed to sell 100 pairs of shoes at 10,500 each, knowing we would resell it to C at 11,000. A, however, failed to deliver those goods. Then in that case, B may recover 500 per pair as damages. What has happened here? This original seller, he was aware that why this person B is purchasing. Let us assume that this is wholesaler and he will be further selling it to retailer, or maybe B is a retailer and he is further selling it to the other customers. So he knows that there is a difference of 500 rupees. So obviously there is an opportunity loss for B because he could not sell off those shoes to other person. So he can recover this 500 as damages from A. Okay, since A has not made the delivery in time, first of all, you have to understand who has breached the contract. Here, seller has breached the contract. Why seller has breached? Because he did not deliver the shoes in time. So if he has not delivered the shoes in time, buyer had to face damages because he lost his customers, and how much loss he has incurred. 500 per pair, that was the damage cost to him. So that is what, how did you calculate this 500 per pair? The cost of those shoes were 10,500 and the selling price would have been 11,000. So 500 per pair was a kind of loss which has happened to him. Okay, so this is what he can claim from the seller. Next, example number 9 from your books. A agreed to sell a rare painting of the Mughal period to B. B refused on the due date. So he agreed to sell this rare painting, but before the due date or on the due date itself, he could not sell that particular painting. So B may file a suit for specific performance. By specific performance, because he will not be able to get this painting anywhere else. So damages are not sufficient. These are unique goods. You have to specify that these are unique goods. Damages are not sufficient, and therefore he can make the seller bound to perform specifically in this particular scenario. Okay, so these are all the remedies which are available. If we have any doubts till here, we can take this up. Otherwise, we can take a short break and we can come back. Example 8 under special damages. Yes, special damages you can say. Yeah, because that is a specific condition. Okay. Akshat, we can take this point. Okay, Sandeep, you are good to go. We can have a break, quick break. We should be back by 3:27. 3:27. Let us start this topic, sale by auction. So, what happens in an auction sale? Just remember any movie or any web series or wherever you have seen any serial, wherever you have seen this auction. So, what happens is a lot of people are sitting and there is a person standing. He is having hammer with him and whatever paintings or any other goods are available. So that is described by the auctioneer, the person who is acting as an agent here, auctioneer. The goods do not belong to him, the goods belong to someone else. So the seller is different, the owner is different, and this mercantile agent, this auctioneer here is acting as a mercantile agent basically. So what does he do? He describes the product, whatever the goods are there, he is describing that, and then he wants people sitting there to make a bid for that, and whosoever makes the highest bid will finally be given that particular goods or that particular product. So that is how the auction takes place, and how the finalization of the sale happens here by fall of hammer. So once the hammer is fall, maybe once or thrice, howsoever it is decided. So if the hammer is fall, that means no further bidding will be accepted for that particular goods. Okay. So let us read the meaning. An auction sale is a mode of selling property by inviting bids publicly, and the property is sold to the highest bidder. The auctioneer is an agent governed by the law of agency. So automatically the Indian Contract Act is applicable between the owner and the auctioneer. He is normally only the agent of the seller, but he may sell his own property as principal without disclosing the fact. So this point, as of now, for no relevance for you all, but it is simply mentioned that during the this auction sale, this agent can even sell his own property without disclosing the fact. So that is also allowed by law. Okay. So what are the provisions with respect to the sale by auction? So the sale by auction is governed by या नीलामी. In Hindi we call it नीलामी. Correct. So goods को नीलाम किया जाता है. That is how it goes. Yes. So section 64 talks about the rules about of this auction sale, how it should be done legally. So the first thing is when the goods are sold in lots. Lots means uh, a set of a grouping of goods is done. Suppose a house is on sale. So there may be a situation where the complete furniture which is there in the house is made into a lot. So whosoever wants to purchase the furniture will have a separate, they will have a separate bidding. Whosoever wants to purchase the house, the actual building will have a separate bidding process for them. So that is how different lots are prepared for each category of items. I mean, that can be done. So maybe for the kitchen items, a separate lot can be there. For the paintings of the house, separate lot can be there. For the furniture, everything, the separate lot can be made. So wherever the goods are up, wherever the goods are put up for the sale in lots, each lot will be considered to be a subject matter, or a separate contract of sale will be there for each lot. So different sales can happen for each lot particularly. So if the goods are sold in lot means a group is prepared for a similar kind of goods, then in that case a particular lot can be sold to one person, different the second lot or the third lot can be sold to different person. So there will be a separate contract of sales. It will not be combined one sale, but different people can participate and they can become the buyers there. Okay. So it will not be given to just one person, it may be given to different buyers. Next, B, completion of the sale. When can we say the sale has completed? So the sale is complete when the auctioneer announces its completion by the fall of hammer. So two things are important. Who announces? Auctioneer will announce. And the second is how he will do that, by his conduct or behavior, that is by falling the hammer or in any other customary manner. Till then, any bidder may retract his bid. Retract his bid means he can move away from his bid. That means he can cancel or withdraw his bid. So until unless the hammer has been fallen, then before that you can take back whatever you have bidded for that particular goods. So I can withdraw my bid. I can take back until unless the acceptance has been done. So when you are falling the hammer, basically you are accepting on behalf of seller. So that is how. So there is a topic in Indian Contract Act wherein you can read that till what point of time offer can be offer can be taken back or offer can be withdrawn. So offer can be taken back until unless it is accepted. So once acceptance is there, you cannot take back the offer. So similarly, these are the offers. This bidding is an offer given by various people. So these bidders can take back their offers as and when they is required, but it cannot happen after the acceptance. That means after the fall of hammer, they will not be allowed to withdraw their bids. Okay. Next is right to bid reserve. Sometimes the seller may reserve the right to bid. Let me read this one for you and then we will discuss. A right to bid may be expressly reserved by or on behalf of the seller, and where there is no reservation, the seller or on one person on his behalf may bid at the auction. So what happens here is sometimes seller may even ask his agents or anyone from his side to participate in the bidding process. There, it is implied that he has reserved his right for the bidding. So, normally, it should not happen that the seller himself is bidding for the goods because he is supposed to sell those goods. He should not participate in the bidding. But sometimes it happens, or he can lawfully have this right to bid. And this should be made known to the people who are participating, that there are a few people from the seller side also participating in this. So that is the thing which is mentioned here. Sometimes seller also reserves his right to bid. Why it is mentioned expressly reserves? Because this has to be communicated to the people who are participating. What if that thing is not done, or he secretly does that thing? So in that case, it becomes voidable at the option of the uh, highest bidder. Whosoever will be the highest bidder, he has the option, or the buyer will have the option to treat the contract as voidable, because he may feel that he has been cheated by this kind of activity. Okay, last is sale not notified. Sale not notified means what? Let me first read this for you. If not notified to be subject to such right, it is unlawful for the seller to bid or employ anyone. Any sale contravening may be treated as fraudulent. So this is related to this point. I mean, this key point and this point. If this kind of thing is not notified, if people are not made aware, then this will be a kind of unlawful thing or fraudulent thing. Therefore, the buyer will have the right to treat it as voidable. Okay. Next is reserve price. The seller may reserve a price, or this price is the upset price, or you can say the minimum price at which the bidding process should start. So suppose a seller wants to sell his painting and he has asked the auctioneer that the minimum price at which you should sell is 10,000, or you should start the bidding process from 10,000. So on the start of the auction itself, the auctioneer has to mention that there is a reserve price. He cannot start from 0 or 1,000, 2,000. He has to start from that 10,000 level and then he has to take it further. So that is the case of reserve price. The auctioneer cannot sell below this amount. Okay, he cannot sell below this amount. Next, what do you mean by pretended bidding? What do you mean by pretended bidding? See, pretend means to act. It is an English term which means to act. So actually you are not bidding, but you are just acting to bid. So how does it happen? Sometimes the seller asks his own people to participate in the bidding, and they are pretending to bid to make the price higher and higher, because what happens in the bidding process is when one person is quoting some amount, the other person, while seeing that okay, this person is has made or he has bid a particular amount, I should bid at a higher level. Or when two three people from the seller side only are participating in that bidding, they are creating a situation, they are creating an environment wherein the people are feeling, the other bidders who are sitting there, they are feeling that oh, this good is of such value that three or four people are into the competition, or they are actually bidding for it. Why not the others participate? So why not we also get into the bid and participate? And what happens in this pretended bidding is that uh, as soon as a genuine bidder starts bidding, the other bidders, which are only pretending to bid, they may stop the bidding and ultimately it goes to the higher bidder. Okay, the genuine bidder, they will get it. So it is a kind of, method to inflate the price of the goods. This is a kind of inflation of the price. Yes, pretended bidders, it should be expressly mentioned. That is what it has to be there. But if it is not mentioned that way, it will be voidable at the option of the buyer. Because again, the buyer may feel that he has been cheated. The goods which could have been available to you at a lesser price have been unduly inflated by the persons who are pretending to be bidding, who are not the genuine buyers, and therefore he can claim the damages, or he may cancel the contract. That is purely at the option of the buyer. Let us quickly read this example 12, which is given at the bottom of the slide. He sold a car by auction, knocked down to queue on check, with the agreement that the ownership won't pass till the check clears. So until unless the check clears, the ownership will not pass. That was mentioned by these parties. Before the clearance, Q sold this particular car to R. So what was held in this particular case? The property passed on the, because this was a case of auction. So the property passed uh, as soon as the fall of hammer was there. So R had a good title, and if subsale has been made, the other person will also get a good title. So if the other person, the new buyer, is acting in good faith and he has already paid the consideration, then obviously he will get a good title. So this is the case which is mentioned here in this particular uh, uh, case. There is one example we can take that. Or okay, this slide is also remaining. What about the taxes? The taxes in case of sale of goods. So we all have heard about GST, goods and service tax. So whenever goods are sold, there is a tax which is applicable, which is known as GST. So the rate of GST may increase, uh, it may increase if it is a case of agreement to sell. Let us assume that when the agreement took place, the GST rate was say 5%. And when the actual delivery had to happen, the rate has gone to 18%. What will happen to the increased rate, or maybe the tax rate has been decreased? Whether it will be charged from the buyer or not. So that is the case we have to discuss. Or the benefit, if any, because the tax has lowered, suppose, then in that case, whether the lower amount will be paid by the buyer or how it will be dealt. So when this is discussed in section 64A, when where a contract, where after a contract of sale has been made, but before it has been performed. So basically, it is a case of agreement to sell. A tax revision takes place. So there is a change in the tax rates. That is, a tax is imposed. Maybe there was no tax earlier and now it is imposed, or it is a case where the tax rate has increased, or it is a case where the tax rate has decreased. So there may be three circumstances, or it has been uh, remitted, or the tax rate has been, uh, earlier there was some tax, now there is no tax at all. So the categorization of the taxation or those goods have changed. So that is what it is mentioned here. There may be any of these situations where there was no tax earlier and now they have imposed tax. There was tax earlier but at a lower rate and now they have increased the rate. There may be a situation where the tax rate was lower and now they have increased, and the vice versa. That means the tax rate was higher and now they have decreased. So in any of these situations in respect of these goods, without any stipulation as to payment of tax, because sometimes we might not be able to discuss the terms with respect to the payment of taxes. So what is there in the law for us? So the parties become entitled to readjust the price of the goods accordingly. Even if there is no discussion between the buyer and seller with respect to the payment of the taxes, it will be automatically readjusted in the price of the goods. So if the tax rate has increased, the price shall be increased. If the tax rate has reduced, the price shall be reduced. You cannot argue later on that why this has changed because it is given in the law itself. Next, taxes covered. What all taxes are covered? First of all, GST, obviously any tax on the sale or purchase of the goods. Second is any duty of custom or excise. So taxes, if we talk here, are related to GST. Either GST will be changing or the custom duties on the goods or the excise duties on the goods. So all these are related to the purchase and sale of goods. So we are talking about these taxes. If the tax is increased or imposed, the seller may add the increase or imposition to the contract price and recover it from the buyer. If the tax is decreased or remitted, the buyer is entitled to a corresponding reduction in the contract price. He need not pay the part of the price representing the tax no longer applies. So in simple language, the benefit of the tax will be given to the buyer. Okay, is there any question for this slide? Arjun is saying tax has to be paid by the people of India who are having and also earning annual income. Okay, you are discussing the provision of Income Tax Act. We are not discussing the income tax because that is laid on your income. We are talking about purchase and sale of goods. So when you are talking about goods, basically at the time of purchase or sale of goods, what all taxes are imposed on them. So that is GST. Obviously, whatever you are paying, that will be income for the other party, and on that, that person will pay income. But that is a complete subject altogether. You will study income tax in your intermediate level. So for the time being, just listen to this part only, and let us quickly have this example. So auction with a reserve price. We just read what is reserve price. Reserve price is the base price or the minimum or the upset price with which the bidding should start. What if the auctioneer sells at a lower price? So this is a case study wherein we will discuss if or what will happen if the auctioneer sells at a lower price. So this is obviously discussed in section 64. Here we can say that if there is any reserve price or upset price, the normal rule is that the bidding process should start with that. So what has happened in this particular situation? There's a beautiful painting here. This person is the auctioneer, and he has mentioned that this is subject to a reserve price of 10 lakh. However, the people sitting here might not be knowing what do you mean by this reserve price, and he has not also explained, the auctioneer has not explained also, and the people here are starting the bidding and they have started with 6 lakh, 7 lakh, 8 lakh, and they have not yet reached to 10 lakh also. So the highest bid here from the public is 8 lakh. Normally, the auctioneer should not have accepted this, but due to his ignorance or whatever the case may be, he has allowed this kind of process, and the highest bidder from his side is this 8 lakh, the person who has bid for 8 lakh rupees. So normally this is below the reserve price and this should not have happened. So what has actually happened here? So he has already fallen his hammer saying that this goods belong, now this painting belongs to you because you are the highest bidder. 10 lakh, whosoever has bid for that person has become the highest bidder. But the auction was subject to reserve price of 10 lakh. We know that. So the auctioneer has wrongfully accepted the lower bid. So what will happen to this contract? Will this be a valid contract, or this will not be a contract at all? Or this is a void contract? What can we say? Whether the acceptance is valid or not, we have to understand this point. Here, the seller refuses to deliver the good. Why the seller is refusing to deliver? normally the auctioneer will say that I had already done that by mistake or whatsoever. But the seller, the owner of the goods, he will say that I had told you not to sell it below 10 lakh. And even if you have done that is your mistake, I will not sell my goods at a price lower than the amount, which is 10 lakh. So the person who is the actual owner of the goods, he's saying that the bid was below my reserve price and I will not sell the painting at any cost now. So, what are the key questions which you should remember, which should come to your mind? First question is the sale valid? Second question, what about the ownership, whether it passes on to the new person? Next, who will bear the loss? And is there any case law with respect to this? So, what are the answers? First, regarding the sale, whether it is valid? No, the sale is not valid. Auctioneer had no authority to accept the bid below the reserve price. Second, ownership, whether the ownership has passed, no, since there was no valid acceptance, there's no passing of the ownership. Who will bear the loss? Seller cannot be compelled to sell, buyer cannot be compelled to profit or difference. If the seller had in any point of time, sold it for 8 lakh also, then also he would not have claimed the difference amount because it would have been assumed that the seller now has agreed to that 8 lakh rupees. But for the time being, let us just assume that he did not sell the painting, so there was no question of any kind of loss. So there's a particular case law, McManus versus Fortescue. So normally this is from English law, we have quoted this case. So how does it work? Auction sale is to be notified and it has to be actually announced that it is subject to a reserve price. So any bid coming below the reserve price should not be accepted. Only the bidding or only the bids which are above the reserve price should be accepted. So no contract of sale will come to an existence if the price is or the bids are lower to the reserve price. Okay, so what you must understand here is that auctioneer is just the agent of the seller. He must act within the authority. If he sells below the reserve price and he causes any kind of loss, he may be liable to the seller for the breach of his duty and negligence. So that is what we have to remember here. So with this is the summary or these are the key takeaways for all of you. We have to remember who is an unpaid seller, section 45, the proper definition. Then what are the rights available to the unpaid seller? All these rights are discussed in detail. Then if there is a case of subsale by the buyer, how that will take place or whether the unpaid seller still has his right to apply lien or stoppage of goods in transit. Then we discussed about various rights against the buyer, uh, the right to suit for the price, then suit for damages and all. We have discussed that. Then again, we discussed the rights of buyer also. So what all buyer can get from the seller if he has breached. And the last part, we discussed about the auction sale. So auction sale, we discussed a few terms like pretended bidding and the reserve price. So again, if anything is done which is unlawful, then it is voidable at the option of the buyer. Okay, so that is it from my side. If there are any questions, we are open to that. You can unmute and you can ask. Just raise your hand, we will unmute you. Ananya, you are asking something. Reserve price is a secret price. Normally, if it is not announced, it will be considered as a secret price. Otherwise, normally it has to be announced that the bidding process will start at this level. Section 62, 63 are also there. I have not referred to the section, but we have discussed each and every provision which are there in the module.
Student, Telegram link will be shared tomorrow.
Yes, IPL auction will also be under sale by auction. Wherever seller is actually not intending to buy the goods, Vishnu. Vishnu is asking why people from the seller side will participate. Basically, it is to inflate the price of the goods. He's creating an environment that people will think that yes, these goods are of very good. I mean, these goods are not available elsewhere, or we have to actually purchase these goods. So that kind of environment is created. False environment, I would say. If the buyer refuses to cancel the deal, Gaurav is asking, if the buyer refuses to cancel the deal, then what will happen in the auctioneer case? So can he cancel at any point of time? Just let me know. In normal scenario also, can a buyer say that I do not want the sale to happen now? So what will be the case? The goods will still be with the seller. So for the price, obviously you cannot file a suit, but for the damages you can. Yes, Telegram will link with. If you want, I can take up a few questions, take one or two questions from the exam. There are some objective questions also for you. Let me check that. Yes, there are some MCQs for you. Arjun, you can unmute yourself and you can ask. Rest of you can just answer this question if my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good
Ma'am, I
evening.
have doubts in auction sale. Ma'am, means right to reserve, pretended right to bid, pretended and sale not notified by the seller
Okay.
or the auction. Can you explain those 2 points?
Okay. The first thing is, normally if there is a case of pretended bidding, wherein the seller is asking his own agents to participate in the bidding process. Firstly, whether he is allowed to do so or not. Can seller ask his own people to sit in the bidding process? Yes, that is allowed. When the people are sitting there, can they even participate in the bidding? Yes, that is also allowed. But that has to be communicated. That has to be communicated through auctioneer. Auctioneer will announce that there are some people amongst these bidders that who are from the side of the seller. So everyone has to beware. So that kind of thing will happen in that case. And if that was not announced, it will be considered as an unlawful kind of thing or a fraudulent sale, obviously, because that what happens that way, why these people are made to sit there, they will ultimately start bidding in such a way that the price shoots up. It will inflate to a very higher level. So therefore the actual or the genuine bidder will feel that he has been cheated. So therefore it is voidable at his option. Voidable at his option means he, if he wants, he can cancel the contract. He will not be bound to take the delivery of the goods. He will not be
And
bound to pay also.
and also, ma'am, upset price means minimum price.
Minimum price, reserve price. Reserve price is the price which the seller has asked the auctioneer to start the bidding from. He will not
Okay.
accept anything below that.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
कई बार ऐसा होता है, if you can understand in Hindi, or I'll say it in English only. In the auction process, the bidder starts saying that the auction will start from 1 lakh rupees. He mentions that clearly. So that is the reserve price. You cannot start from zero and reach till 1 lakh. It will be a waste of time. So rather than that, directly start from 1 lakh. That is the minimum price.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Sandeep, you can unmute and ask.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, Sandeep.
Ma'am, my question is related to sub sale. So, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, ma'am, if a seller has not assented to the buyer, he
Okay.
has right of lien and stoppage in transit.
Right.
But, ma'am, when a seller has already delivered to the goods to the buyer, and he
If
has,
the goods have already been delivered, obviously lien and stoppage will not be there.
yes,
We are
ma'am.
talking of the situation when the possession is still with the seller.
So, ma'am, in that case, if buyer also sells to the new
The
customer,
remedy available is to
goods
file a
that,
suit on the other party.
then,
That
ma'am,
is the only remedy.
seller has right on sue on new buyer or not.
No, that is a third party. The seller has contracted only with the first buyer. Okay, he cannot file a suit on the new buyer.
If ma'am first buyer is become insolvent, that losses is
Who will have to
incurred.
bear the loss? Obviously, if any person becomes insolvent, the loss has to be borne by the seller.
Okay,
He will
ma'am.
have to bear the loss. He cannot demand the amount from the other party.
Okay, ma'am. Understood.
Only parties to a contract can file a suit against each other. So the C or the new buyer is a third party. If we are talking about the first contract of sale, the C is totally a different party. You cannot ask him to make the to pay the damages.
Okay.
Okay. Let us, Akshat, you want to ask? If you can
We
mute.
will take Akshit queries later. Just
Okay.
first we'll finish MCQs and two,
Okay,
three
okay.
descriptive questions. And if
Okay.
the time allowed, then we will take his queries.
Okay. So question number 6, transit begins when goods are dash. Transit begins when goods are dash. I think this is easy for you. When they are. Option, which one is correct? Option B. Everyone has answered that correctly. Next question. When they are delivered to the carrier, that is correct. Question number 7. Right of resale is especially important for whom? For which kind of goods maybe? So resale is of utmost importance in first case, that is when the goods are perishable. Sandeep, Jyoti, Vishnu, everyone. Immovable property, why? Immovable property will not be even considered in Sale of Goods Act, right? Perishable. Oh, I saw the earlier answers. Sorry. So you people have answered A only. Correct. Next. Perishable goods was the answer for that. An unpaid seller can sue for what? Unpaid seller can sue for, I think, all of these: damages, price, and interest. Can anyone mention the section number for suit for price? At least that section we have to remember. Section 55. Dakshita has mentioned the section. Deepak, Yukti, everyone, Vishnu also. Very nice. At least a few sections you remember, okay? Right of lien ends when? Right of lien ends when goods are delivered to carrier without reservation. Right? Option B or D? All of these? Correct, all of these, because when seller waives his right of lien, then also he will, that will be a situation when the right of lien will terminate. Correct. All of these is the correct answer. Next, question number 10. Subsale by buyer affects seller's right. Subsale by buyer affects seller's right when? So this is talking about the exceptional case. This is talking about the exceptional case. Option A, seller assents to subsale. Correct. Most of you have already answered option A. Correct. Let us take a question here. A, who is an agent of a buyer, had obtained the goods from the railway authorities and loaded the goods on his truck. In the meantime, the railway authorities received a notice from B, the seller, for stopping the goods in transit as the buyer has become insolvent. Referring to the provisions of Sale of Goods Act 1930, decide whether the railway authorities can stop the goods in transit as instructed by the seller. So by reading the question, you have to understand we are talking about which topic. So it will relate to stoppage of transit. So again, stoppage of transit, you have to identify whether the buyer has become, the seller has become insolvent or not, whether all the conditions are satisfied. Let's see how many of you could understand. Which section it is talking about? Stoppage of goods in transit. Section 50, yes, and Anya. So all the conditions, whether it is satisfying all the conditions. Yeah, Jyoti, Dakshita, Akshat, everyone is saying this section. Let us read quickly what is the correct answer for this. Thus, right of stoppage of goods in transit means the right of stopping the goods after the seller has parted with the goods. So therefore, this is that case only. So we have mentioned all these conditions. The right can be exercised by unpaid seller when he has lost the right of lien. So that also you have to mention. These are the conditions. Then I'm just reading it from here. In the given case, let me just mark for you. I am reading from here. In the given case, A, who is an agent of the buyer, had obtained the goods from the railway authorities and loaded the goods on his truck. So what has happened from the railways, the goods have gone to truck. And this truck owner or this truck is basically the agent of the buyer. So from seller, he has loaded the goods on railways. From railways, because somehow the goods have to be unloaded at the railway station and then they have to be transported through some other medium by road or somewhat. So they have been put into this uh, the other mode, that is truck, and this truck owner is basically acting on behalf of whom? On behalf of the buyer. So can we say that the goods are still in transit because the goods are still moving, they have not reached the buyer? Or can we say that since the truck driver or the truck here, we can say that it is acting as an agent of the buyer, he has received the goods. So in that case, the stoppage has ended. The goods are not in transit anymore, because as soon as the goods reach to the agent or the buyer himself, then they are considered as the delivery has been made. So when the delivery is already there, you cannot stop the goods in between. So accordingly, you have to answer. So after this, the railway authorities received a notice from the seller B to stop the goods in transit. When the railways has already given the goods to the truck, now they do not have the possession of these goods. How can they stop? Whether they have the authorities to stop. So according to the Sale of Goods Act 1930, the railway authorities cannot stop. They cannot stop. It is clearly mentioned here. They cannot stop the goods because the goods are not in transit. So again, what do you have to understand when the goods are considered to be in transit and when they are not? So long as the goods were with the railways, they were considered as goods in transit. But as soon as the goods have been transferred from railways to this truck, because now the truck is acting as an agent, or this carrier is acting as an agent on behalf of the buyer. So whenever the delivery is made to buyer himself or his agent, the delivery is complete. So A, who has loaded the goods on his truck, is the agent of the buyer. That means the railway authorities have given the possession of the goods to the buyer. The transit comes to an end when the buyer or his agent, this line is important, the transit comes to an end when the buyer or his agent takes the possession of the goods. Okay, so what is the final conclusion? So can he do that or he cannot do that? What was the main question? Decide whether railway authorities can stop the goods. No, they cannot stop the goods because they have already been delivered to the buyer. It is assumed that they have already been delivered to the buyer. Okay. Let me take one more question. Jay sold a
Hello,
machine.
hello, ma'am.
Yes, Akshay. The other people, the other students can read this question. Jay sold a machine to K. K gave a check for the payment. The check was, however, dishonored. But Jay handed over a delivery order to K. K finally sold the goods to R. So this is a new person on the basis of delivery order. So this delivery order, can it act as a document of title? That is what we have to discuss.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, Akshay.
Ma'am, I doubt in Unit 4 that third and fourth point in auction sale, ma'am.
हाँ बोलो. You can speak up, Akshay.
Ma'am, right to bid may be reserved and sale is not notified by the seller.
उसमें क्या पूछना है?
उसने पूछना है, आपने शुरू में बताया था, कंफ्यूज हो गया था। जब सेल कंप्लीट होती है, ऑक्शनर अनाउंस करता है कस्टमरी मैनर में, उसके बाद जब बिड होता है रिजर्व, तो क्या होता है उस केस में? और थर्ड और फोर्थ पॉइंट समझ नहीं आया।
पहले तो सिंपल समझो, बिडिंग में सेलर के एजेंट्स भी पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं, पहली बात.
यस मैम. हेलो.
So we will take this question first and then we can continue. In this particular question, when it is mentioned that we have to discuss about this delivery order. According to this delivery order, the whether the ownership has been transferred or whether the unpaid seller has any right. So the right of lien and stoppage in transit are meant to protect the seller. These will not be affected even when the buyer has made a transaction of his own goods which were with the seller under the lien. But under two exceptional cases, let me just mark this for you. Under these two exceptional cases, these rights of the seller are not affected, or these are affected basically. When does this affect? When he has himself given the consent, when he has himself given the consent, or this thing, when on the basis of document of title, on the basis of this document of title, if the sale is happening. So in the given case, delivery order, we can say that this delivery order is a document of title, and accordingly we can answer. So in the given case, J has sold the machine to K, and K gave a check for the payment, but the check was dishonored. This line itself says that the seller, that is J, is unpaid seller because his payment has not been made. The check has been dishonored. That means J, the seller, is an unpaid seller, so he is entitled to exercise his right of lien. Normally, he should have exercised his right of lien, but according to the exceptional case number 2, we will refer this. So, but according to section 53, subsection 1, his right of lien is defeated because he has given the document of title to the buyer, and the buyer has made a transaction of sale on the basis of this document. So, R, who has purchased the machine from K, can demand the delivery of the machine. So, this is the final thing. R, who has purchased the machine from K, can demand the delivery of the machine. That means J, even though he is holding the goods, he cannot apply lien because his right to apply lien has been defeated. Or this is an exceptional case where he has to hand it over to the other person. He cannot apply the right of lien, even though he can say that he is an unpaid seller, but he cannot apply right of lien. What are the other remedies available to him to recover the money? He can file a suit against the buyer for price and the other things which we have read. So lien he cannot apply. That is what we have to mention here from the point of view of J, and from the point of view of K, who is the new buyer. You have to specifically mention that he will have all the right to take the delivery from J. Okay. So with this, I think we can finish off the session.
Yes, Akshit,
Yes, ma'am.
Akshit, please take only one query.
One query, ma'am.
Yes, you are allowed only one query because time is very less. Please ask your query.
Ma'am, in Unit 3, I have one query, and Unit 4, one query.
Unit 4, please ask query from Unit 4.
Okay.
Be fast.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, from study material 3.80, I have doubt, ma'am.
Just read it out, Akshit, from your side. I don't have the module open in front of me, so you'll have to read it out. Just read out the topic, I'll explain.
Ma'am, the topic is one is right of lien and stoppage in transit and resale in the fifth point, and second point. Fifth point from 3.78 and second point from 3.80.
Just read out, Akshit. 3.78 pe whatever doubt you are having. Read the content.
Ma'am, right of A entered into contract to sell cartoons in possession of Badfinger to B and agreed that B that price will be paid to A from the sale proceeds recovered from his customers. Now B is sold to C and D duly paid to B, but anybody B failed to make the payment to A. A want to exercise right of lien and order the Badfinger and not make delivery to C. Then A sold certain goods to B in Mumbai, and the goods are handed over to Railways Transmission B. B sold these goods to C for consideration. B becomes insolvent. Assume seller did not give his consent for uh, subsale, and this is the example. And that, and I have doubt. The topic is recover the current contract price and resell price from original buyer as damages. The seller can recover damages and retain the profits only when the goods are sold after giving the notice of sale to the buyer. I doubt in second and fourth point and in that example.
अक्षित, इसमें ये समझ में आएगा कि बायर कौन है सेलर कौन है, पहले तो हु इज बायर एंड हु इज सेलर?
इसमें ये समझ में आया वो बायर को नोटिस दे रहा है।
नहीं, बायर है कौन, नाम तो है ना उसमें लिखे हुए। हु इज बायर, हु इज सेलर, व्हाट इज एक्चुअली हैपनिंग हियर। पहली बात, अनपेड सेलर वाले टॉपिक में भी आएगा कि नहीं आएगा वो आपको चेक करना पड़ेगा। इंसॉल्वेंसी जैसे ही मेंशन कर देते हैं, इट इज अ केस ऑफ अनपेड सेलर, यू हैव टू चेक इट फ्रॉम दैट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू।
मैम राइट ऑफ रीसेल में बोल रहा हूँ, सेकंड और फोर्थ पॉइंट।
नहीं तो मुझे दिख थोड़ी रहा है सेकंड और फोर्थ पॉइंट। यू हैव टू मेंशन राइट ऑफ रीसेल कब आता है किसी के भी पास, व्हेन यू डू नॉट हैव, I mean, you have already applied your right of lien. You have already applied either of these rights, right of lien or stoppage of goods in transit, and you have notified the buyer also. And if the buyer is not making the payment, then only you have the right of resale. So, what is the doubt?
Doubt है buyer gives notice to the buyer of his intention to resell the goods or resale by the seller where right of resale is expressly reserved in contract. और फिर उसके बाद एक एग्जांपल में इसमें डाउट है, एग्जांपल 7 and 6।
तुम दो अलग अलग एग्जाम्पल अलग अलग टॉपिक पे
उसके साथ दो पॉइंट्स में डाउट है और एग्जांपल भी बताया।
मैम ऐसा करते हैं, अस का क्वेरी आप मंगवा लीजिए अपने पास मेल पे,
Yes.
एंड देन वी विल रिप्लाई टू हिम।
पॉइंट
Akshit, just send the query on the BOS mobile app. So I will forward it to the Divya ma'am, and we will talk later on this query. Okay. So thank you, Divya. Thank you so much for taking the chapter 3, that is Sales of Goods Act 1930, and the PPTs and the lecture was wonderful. The notes, the PPT, the assignments, all the things are very explainable. You can see the PPTs. Each and every point is explained in a very easy manner, and the ma'am has emphasized on memorizing the sections. She has shared the tips and strategies to how to deal with the sections, how to remember the sections, and how to remember the provisions as well. And each and every question we have discussed, like always we say that questions has to be divided, answers has to be divided in 3 parts. First, legal provision. In recent time, in May 2026 examination, I interacted with some students who has not cleared the foundation course. So the basic problem lies in they did not mention the correct legal provision. And if the question is of 6 to 7 marks, the legal provision, the marks allocated for legal provision is 3 to 4 marks. Many a times in every live virtual class, we advise to you that legal provision is a must in the law paper. You have to write the legal provision, but they did not write the legal provision properly, and some students did not complete the 100 marks paper. In the previous classes also, I always conveyed to you that please try to complete 100 marks paper. Only then you will be able to get more than 50 marks. Some students had opted 80 marks or 75 marks paper, and they got only 39 marks, 38 marks. For 2 marks, they could not clear the foundation paper. So just emphasize, focus on writing legal provisions, and it's a target that always you have to complete each and every paper, not about only paper 2. Each first paper, second paper, 3 and 4 are MCQs type. There is no issue in that. First and 2, just complete your paper, fully 100 marks paper, and whenever you are trying your suggested answer at home, your mock test paper at home, complete the complete mock test paper, all the 6 questions. I am not telling about 5 questions because there is a choice of 1 question. You because maybe you are attempting only 5 questions and 1 question you left, that same question came in your examination. So always complete the 6 questions at home within the limit of 3 hours. I'm not telling ma'am, अब बच्चे बोलेंगे कि ma'am 3 hours में तो we have to complete 5 questions, but you have to maintain the target of completing all the 6 questions at home. I'm talking about home, not the examination. Okay, complete the 6 questions within 3 hours. Only then you will learn how to manage the time, and your speed of writing in the examination conditions will increase. Okay, so today we have finished our chapter 3, that is Sales of Goods Act. Notes and assignments are properly there. Questions are there in the notes as well as in the assignments. Please practice these questions. Complete the chapter from the study material, and there are questions at the end of study material also. Okay. Latest RTP, it's a must. You can complete the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. All the questions are given chapter wise in the RTPs, and suggested answers are uploaded recently, last week only. So there is a plenty of resources with you to complete till the Friday class. On Friday we will start our chapter 4, that is Indian Partnership Act 1932, comprising of 3 units. Okay, so thank you so much, Divya, for taking the classes. Thank you
My
so
pleasure,
much.
ma'am. Absolutely my pleasure. I request students to please give your feedback
Yes,
so that even we understand where we are lacking or where we have to improve, basically.
yes. 2, 3 queries I received. Just a second.
Sure, ma'am, please.
Yes. Sandeep is asking, ma'am, any suggestions for this chapter? How to make this chapter into much easier? Sandeep, if you have attended all the live virtual, all the 8 sessions for this chapter, it will automatically become easy. But focus is you have to give on the study material as well, and the previous question papers, previous suggested answers. And if any topic is unleft with you, please see the recorded lecture of live virtual class. RTP is uploaded on the BUS knowledge portal. There are 4 to 5 attempts RTPs are available. Ananya, okay? So just go through the ICAI website. There is a portal student. There is a BUS knowledge portal in the student tab. You will find the RTP. Yes. So with this, we are finishing our lecture. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, dear students. Now we will meet on Friday for new chapter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All the best to all. Hope you all score very well in this Sale of Goods Act at least. Okay, bye.
Yes, please end the session.